Hey crew, it's Pitt and I'm back with some more Esoterica. Today we are diving back into the works of Carl Jung. This is Mysterium Conjuntionis. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points brought to light by the text. It is not the format for everyone, but people do find value in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above, in the box down below, along with the original source material, the link for my book where I teach you to do magic and live responsibly, and the links to get in contact with me directly, so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. With that, we are going to continue our exploration of Mysterium Conjunctionis with Chapter 6, Part 3, the production of the quintessence. Quintessence means the essentialness, the perfection of, right? Not the dark energy bullshit, right? Dark energy doesn't work. Black holes theories and all of the current physics just simply does not work. They have to invent funny math. There are better ways to explain things than with that funny math. So this isn't talking about that. This is talking about the essential essence of something. So let's dive in. Much of Dorn's argument moves in the sphere of symbols and soars on winged feet into the clouds. But that does not prevent his symbols from having a more mundane meaning, which appears more or less accessible to our psychology. Thus, he knew that even the wise man could not reconcile the opposites unless a sudden heavenly substance hidden in the human body came to his help. Namely, the balsam, the quintessence, the philosophic wine. Footnote 70. The Verum Philosophicorum contains the Essential Callistus. This is interesting. There is somebody that might mention somewhere that there is a substance that you can produce within your own human body which will indeed help you in this process of reconciling the opposites. As a matter of fact, there are explicit instructions in some book somewhere that tells you how to go about doing that. A virtue and heavenly vigor, in short, the truth. 72 is, but truth is the supreme virtue and an impregnable stronghold. There is a reason why underneath, like right underneath me right here, you see the truth shall set you free. It doesn't matter that that's biblical. The Bible does contain some truth, and just not the truth. That's absolutely true. The truth will set you free. One way of looking at that particular oil is to call it the truth. This truth was the panacea. Yes. It is only indirectly hidden in the body, since in reality it consists in the imago Dei, imprinted in man. No, it is literally a physical substance. It is literally a chemical that you emit when you are born and when you die, and at certain other times in your life as well. It is DMT. It is a psychotropic, but it is produced by you naturally through a process that is described, right? All of these chakras have flexation points, both positive and negative. The flexation of the third eye will produce this substance. And it does take work, right? It is not something that you are just going to get on the first try, but it does happen. It is something that I am able to replicate fairly easily. And so there is a physical substance. It is a literal change of your mentality when that substance releases. It is philosophic wine. It is virtue and heavenly vigor. It is the truth. It opens up the doors to the truth is what it does. And so it is not the imago Dei imprinted in man. Right? It is just not. That is his psychological understanding of it, but he did not have the capacity for releasing this juice. Right? He was not able to milk the vine. He was not able to do the things, to move the living waters, to drink from the cup that never runs dry. He didn't do that. And because he didn't do that, he doesn't get this. But because I have, This screams at me. This is, hey, look, here is truth. Look at what I'm telling you. We have seen that repeatedly from Dorn. That is why we are almost certainly going to go to the Theatrica Chemicum after this. Dorn knew what he was talking about. Now, whether he had a full understanding or what, we will have to find out. But all of the quotes that have been put in here by Jung have been in accordance with the things that I talk about in here. Now, that is the quotes from Dorn specifically, right? Paracelsus, not so much. Some of the other ones, not so much. Dorn appears to know what he was talking about, at least a little bit. There is a substance. It is a very real, literal thing that you release through the process. So it is not just reflection, right? This imago is the true quintessence and the virtue of the philosophic wine. The latter is therefore an apt synonym because wine and that liquid allows you the access, allows a big word. It gives you better capacity for the manipulation of the electromagnetics, right? That is what the title of this book is, The Beginner's Guide to the Mechanics of Electromagnetic Manipulation and Energetic Manifestation. That you get to start, right? You can move these energies without the juice, but without the juice, you're probably not going to attain the fullness of the path. Oh, and that is giving you not access to, but better control of the Holy Spirit, right? The ability to manipulate the Holy Spirit. The latter is therefore an apt synonym because wine in the form of a liquid represents the body, but as alcohol, it represents spirit, which would seem to correspond with the heavenly virtue. Tell that to the Baptists. This, although divided up among individuals, is universal. It is one. And when freed from its fetters in the things of sense, it returns to its original state of unity. This is one of the secrets of nature whereby the spaghettics have attained to higher things. Footnote 7.3, page 464. The wine can be prepared from grain. Footnote 74. Grana can also mean grape pips. And from all other seeds. Footnote 75. For details of this procedure, see infra. The extracted essence is reduced to its greatest simplicity by assiduous rotary movements. Footnote 76. Page 465. Whereby the pure is separated from the impure. Now, this can be a reference to physical alchemy. I don't have the experience with that. It is also a reference to spiritual alchemy, right? Releasing of this chemical is the wine. Right? The wine can be prepared from the grain and from all other seeds. That is more talking about the physical side of things. Right? Even grape pips, like that is the little seeds inside of grapes. It doesn't... but the extracted essence is reduced to its greatest simplicity by assiduous rotary movements. That is kind of true, right? Where the pure is separated from the impure, that is as well. There is a discernment process that takes place in here, right? The movement of these energies, both up and down, is intrinsic to that balancing process, in my estimation, right? You can go through the concepts of, am I feeling wrathful? Am I feeling love? Am I feeling lust? Am I feeling chastity? Or you can go directly to the chakras themselves, and you can feel the imbalance, right? That is how I discovered it first. It was a feeling, not a visual thing. That came a lot later. The actual physicality of feeling the rotation of the various points, right? It rotates either in a clockwise or a counterclockwise manner, but that is, as you are looking forward, your base rotates in a clockwise manner for you, right? If you were looking at it here, it would be in clockwise there. The next one up goes counterclockwise, the next one up goes clockwise, and then counter, and then clock, and then counter, back and forth all the way through the entire stack of 7. You can balance that through feeling, right? It is reduced to its greatest simplicity, in my estimation, through the feeling of the magnetics actually moving inside of you. The releasing of the oil allows you to sense that better. It allows you to see the various manifestations of it better. It allows you to alter reality to a great degree, to see things that are not really visible to most people. I don't want to say it's not there, because it absolutely is there. What my experience with this is, what it seems to be, is that when you see the mandala, right, because when you release the oil, you will see the mandala. The mandalas, depending upon what it is, right, dependent upon you and the situation and a wide variety of variables, depends on which mandala you see. It might be 3 lobes, it might be 6, it might be 14. It all depends upon what you in particular are dealing with right now. But you can see that literally in the air. It appears to me that that is vibrations, harmonics, the emanations of the electromagnetics from the various things that surround you, whether that is the air or a tree or the ground or the grass or whatever it is. Each one of them is giving off an emanation. Every single one of them is giving off an energetic pattern, and it looks like a drop in a pond, right? If you take a rock and you throw it into a pond, it creates ripples, and those ripples form mandalas. Like if you threw 7 equally distant in a pond, you dropped them all at the same time, they would each create their own little ripples, but those ripples would interact with each other, and some of those would resemble Vesica Pisces, which is this shape, right? And so that Vesica Pisces that is formed by the interactions of these various ripples form the mandalas that you see. The mandalas that you see, you can take control of. You can manipulate those energies. You can clarify them, right? They are wide and varied. You see a lot of them, and then you can bring them into focus, clarifying and moving mentally which way you need to do it. That, to me, is how I balanced at least the first half of this, going up. Once it was released, once the juice is out there and you know what you're doing, then pulling the energy down becomes a lot more effective. It really wasn't until I got to the point where my third eye was fairly balanced until I got to the ability to flex it and get the oil. So there is steps involved in it. It is not an intrinsic, oh my God, I got it right now, today type of situation, right? It takes work. But it is a possibility. And it fits. All right, back to the text. Then you will see the pureness floating on the top, transparent, shining, and the color of the purest air. Yeah, 77. CF Rupasica. Le vertu et la property de la quintessence. The quintessence is the equivalent of heaven. It is also called Esprit Divin and Eau de Vie. It is the ciel humain de la couleur du ciel. Very interesting, right? The spirit of the vine. There is a vine. There is a sword. There is a pillar. There is, however you care to designate it, right? Going from the crown to the base, it forms a line. That line can be designated by a wide variety of names. That variety can be the sword of truth or the sword of discernment. It can be a dagger. It can be a wand. It can be a pillar, or it can be a vine. The Eau de Vie, right, that is the essence of life, basically, which absolutely would be the spirit. And the ciel humain, I'm not positive what ciel is, ciel. I'm not even sure what language that is. But the color of the ciel, let's see if we can pop that out real quick. We'll see if we can see what this is. What is ciel? That ain't it. Sky or heaven in French. Okay, so it is the heavenly human and the color of heaven, which absolutely fits 100%. All right, you will see the heretofore spagyric secret heaven. Yes! Which you can bedeck with the lower stars, as the upper heaven is bedecked with the upper stars. Yes. 78. Dorn is probably referring here to the magical procedure described in the second part of Artifice, Clavis Maioris Sapentiae, whereby the planetary spirits who are needed in order to unite the spirit or soul with the body and to transform the latter are compelled to descend. See the pictures of the Conjunctio in the bath of the Ripley scroll and its variants, one of which is given in Psychology and Alchemy. He is, indeed, talking about a magical procedure. I cannot say whether that is the second part of Artifice, because we have not done it yet. It appears to be in the Theatrica Chemicum, and that is something that we are going to be doing. But there is, right, there is a magical procedure. And, right, the planetary spirits, there are these 7 little balls. These 7 little balls correspond with these 7 primary planets of the ancient understanding. I say it that way because they didn't know about Uranus, right? They had the name, but they didn't have the planet. It was not visible to the naked eye at the time in which they were operating. They had the sun and the moon counting as 2 planets, and then they had the 5 primaries from the inner solar system. Well, one of them's in the outer solar system, but Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and Jupiter. Right? Saturn they were able to see. I think that Saturn was even included, but in order for that to work, then they would have had to either leave off the sun or the moon. Right? It may be that they left off Earth. I think that is actually how it worked. But regardless, right, there were 7. Each one of them represented a different property. Those properties can be fairly well aligned here, not necessarily exactly because they didn't have the terminology correct. But in that instance where these chakras, which are internal, not external, in that instance where these chakras stand for the planets, then the planetary spirits would be these chakras as well. And they are needed in order to unite the spirit or the soul with the body. Now that is to unite the soul with the body. There is the as below, the love, wrath, lust, chastity, gluttony, temperance trio, which is the physical urges of the lower. There is the faith and despair. There is sloth and diligence, and pride and humility, which is the as above trinity. And it is bound together through greed and charity in the heart of the philosopher's stone. That is the unification of the body and the soul through the spirit into the divine. That is a procedure. It is a magical procedure. You pull energy from the bottom all the way to the top. And you ground the ground energy at the top, and then you pull the other energy down and you ground it into the ground. That is the procedure. It is extremely simplified to say it that way. It's not much more complicated, right? There are steps to take. I do have them outlined in this somewhat short book. But this, again, confirmation bias acknowledged, is exactly what I would expect to see, especially from Dorn, because once again, Dorn appears to know what he is talking about. Well, now the unbelievers who have imitated the physicist marvel that we handle in our hands the heaven and stars. For us, therefore, the lower stars are all individuals produced by nature in this lower world by their conjunction with heaven, like the conjunction of the higher and the lower elements. Yes, I just explained that. 79. That is all Greek, or all Latin. Now, I hear the voice of many raging against us and crying out, Avaunt! Let those men be destroyed who say that heaven can conjoin itself to earth. That is indeed what the church will tell you. Remember when I told you so many times, and I will continue to, if you were on this path 300 years ago, you would have died. The church would have separated your head from your shoulders, and that would have been the easy way. The Kalem, therefore, is a heavenly substance and a universal form containing in itself all forms, distinct from one another, but proceeding from one single universal form. Agreed. Wherefore, he who knows how individuals can be led on to the most general genus by the spagyric art, and how the special virtues, one or more, can be impressed upon this genus, will easily find the universal medicine. I agree. For since there is one single and most general beginning of all corruptions, wrath, and one universal fount of regenerating, restoring, and life-giving virtues, love. Who, save a man bereft of his senses, will call such a medicine in doubt? Footnote 80. Ibid. Through the alchemical treatment of the grana, grape pips, our mercurius is concocted by the highest sublimation, exaltione, the mixture of the new heaven, of honey. We'll go through all this real quick. Honey, chelidonia, rosemary flowers, mercurialis, of the red lily, and human blood. Well, with the heaven of the red or white wine, or of Tartarus, can be undertaken. All right, we will go from 81 to 87. 81. The elixir of honey preserves and cleanses the human body from all imperfections, both within and without. Honey is a wonderful, wonderful substance. I cannot talk enough about it. Right? Honey has antibiotic and antifungal properties. If you put it upon a fungal infection, it will get rid of it. It is a preservative, a natural preservative. If you take honey by itself, you seal it up in a jar, you can save that jar for 10,000 years and eat it on the other side. It is pretty much the only substance that I know of that you can do that with. Everything else will decay over time through its own processes. Honey does not do that. Honey, in addition to that, is an extractant. If you place thyme with honey in it, right? You put thyme and you put honey on top of it. The thyme oil is extracted in a different way than water will. It will give you a better version of the thyme oil. It is the same for turmeric. It is the same for cayenne. It is the same for rosemary. It is the same for a lot of things. Now, I cannot say unequivocally that it works for everything, but it works for a lot of things. In addition to that, you can place things inside of honey and it will preserve them in the exact same way that it will preserve itself. Honey is a wonderful, wonderful creation. There is a lot that can be investigated into honey, and I cannot even begin to scratch the surface here today. Honey is a great, great substance. It is the best sweetener to use. The first chapter of Paracelsus's Lumen Apothecarium is devoted to honey. Well, maybe Paracelsus did have something right. I mean, he had a lot wrong, but maybe he did have something right. In the third elevation, the honey becomes a deadly poison, like Tartarus mortalis. That has to be by the addition of something else, right? It can't even be by distillation. I don't know the procedure. I don't know what the third elevation is, right? It's probably mixing it with lead or something stupid like that. It contains tartartum. It occurs in Zosimus as the aqua permanens. Both here and in the turba, it forms with vinegar, a pair of opposites. With vinegar, you say. That is interesting. Vinegar has antifungal and antibacterial properties as well. It is the first real cleanser that humanity had. Right? Humanity evolved alcohol, right, pretty closely together. Without alcohol, humans can't exist. But it's not just for drinking it, right? Water was fairly dangerous. If you mix alcohol with water, it gets a lot less dangerous. It kills a lot of those bacteria. But if you expose alcohol to air, it'll turn to vinegar. I'm not sure if it's every alcohol. There may be a distillation point at which that becomes a null effect. But I know for a fact with wine, right? That is how we discovered it. We created wine, maybe by accident, maybe not. That is entirely up for debate. And then we discovered sour wine, probably by accident, less likely intentional. And then from the sour wine, we discovered vinegar. And vinegar, again, has wonderful properties. You can preserve things in it. You can pickle them, right? That is what pickles are. It is pickled cucumbers. So you can pickle jalapenos. You can pickle okra. You can pickle all kinds of things in there. You can use it as an antifungal spray on your pets. And it has a lot of the same properties as honey, but it's not sweet. And so I don't know that it would be an opposite, right? It shares qualities with, fairly directly, antifungal, antibacterial, and preservative. That is shared qualities between the three. The only real difference between them is one is sweet and one is sour. That is an arbitrary designation. 82. Cheladonia occurs as a secret name in the version of the turba given in Artifica Arvorificus, which does not differ appreciably from Ruska's text. Some philosophers have named gold Cheladonia carnic geldum. Ruska explains geldum as Cheladonium meus, L. Dioscorides says that with this herb swallows cures blindness in their young. Swallows cure blindness in their young. And again, that is one of those fucking stupid things, right? When we were doing Cornelius Agrippa, we found a whole lot of fucking stupid things, right? This is fucking stupid. There is nobody who has performed this experiment. Nobody. Nobody has found a blind swallow, right? They may have made one, and if you made one, you did not cure it. It did not happen. You did not cure blindness by giving some herb to a bird. It did not happen. That is fucking stupid. It did not happen. There is no way possible. And I hold a lot of things as possibilities. I believe in magic. It did not happen. In the herbal of this kind of shit right here is why we quit doing Agrippa so very fast, because it was full of this stupid shit. Right? Stuff that wasn't even reviewed. It was just passed down. He said, hey, somebody told me if you give this bird this herb, it'll cure blindness. So he wrote it down as if it was true. It is not. It is not. And so, by relaying that information in the manner that he did, he completely dismissed any validity that he held at all. And it wasn't just a single instance. A single instance can be overlooked. It is a repeated pattern, right? A repeated pattern. In the herbal of Tabernamontanus, it is cited as an eye salve against night blindness. How? How does it allow you to see better in the dark? I'm not saying that one is impossible. It may be that you can distill something from it which will allow you to see in the dark. And at least this one you can experiment on. You cannot experiment on a blind swallow, right? The only way to do that would be to make it blind. You're not going to find one randomly in the wild. And if you did find one and you somehow managed to do it, right? Somehow managed, you gave this bird this thing, and then it was fine. You have to be able to repeat that. You have to find 2 swallows that are blind. And what are the odds that you find 2 swallows in nature that are blind? Astronomical. And I say that fairly unequivocally. It is possible that they are born blind. It is not possible that they survive blind. It is not possible that you have found a blind bird. Not repeatedly, right? There is always the possibility that you will find a single bird that has had something happen to it that made it blind, but not naturally. It is not going to be the normal occurrence. In Ruland, Cheladonia is a synonym for gold, presumably on account of its yellow flowers. In the maws of young swallows, 2 small stones are found, the Lapides Cheladoni, one of them black, the other red. Really. In the maws, which is the mouth, right? In the mouth of young swallows, you find 2 stones, a black one and a red one. Not in real life, right? Now, this can be an allegory for the alchemical internal process. There is the black stone and the red stone, which is definitely misunderstood, but it is there. It is not that you found a bird with 2 stones in its mouth, again, with a repeated pattern, right? There can be an instance where there was 1. There was not an instance where there was 2. On account of its color, the eye salve is used to extract the moisture, soul, of Mercurius. Dorn, Congaris Paracelsi. Salt Cheladoni is mentioned as an emmenagogue and solvent. Cheladonia is the name for the lapis and a cure for insanity. Now, all of this works for internal alchemy. It does not work for external, right? As an allegory, fine. As reality, no. A cure for insanity, you say. If that were true, we would be using it. In Paracelsus, there are 4 Cheladonias synonymous with anthos. Cheladonia is a preservative against thunderstorms. There you go. That's a good one. There's a thunderstorm rolling in. Just go pick you a little flower. It'll get rid of it. 83. Ross. Dew. Aqua permanens. According to the Tabernamontanus, rosemary is an alexipharmac. 84. Tabernamontanus says that Mercurius testiculata, dog's mercury, was found, like Molly, by Mercurius, as a divided sex and is an emmenagogue. According to Dioscorides, Mercurialis inserted in the vagina determines the sex of the child. Mercurius saeva, water of alum wherein mercury is generated. It is of a golden color. Footnote 85. Lilium, Mercurius and Quinta essentia sulphuris, the lily of alchemy and medicine. This is the noblest thing of all of the manifestations of the Creator, Supreme Creator, which man may meditate upon. Dorn. Right, now that is definitely going to be talking about some mental alchemy, right? The noblest of all manifestations, which you may meditate upon. The lily of alchemy, the Quinta essentia sulphuris. Anthera, presumably stamen, lilorium, is given in Paracelsus as an alexipharmac. The Succus lilorium is mercurial and incombustible. Conjunctio of the white and red lily. Footnote 86. Blood is a synonym for the red tincture, equals aqua permanens, a preliminary stage of the lapis. Sanguis homines rufi. Sulfur equals mercurius solis. 87. Penotus says of tartar. It performs wonderful things in the spagyric art, for by its mediation the light of day is turned into the prima materia. You hear that, right? The light of day is turned into the prime material. Now, of tartar. Of tartar? Like we have cream of tartar. What is official tartar? What is tartar? Hardened plaque. That is not what we're looking for. This is all about plaque. Alright, I was hoping, let's see maybe if we do tartar alchemy. Shit. Can't spell today. Tartar alchemy. A quintessential symbol of the human intellect and ability to decode secrets in nature. Tartar or tartar of wine is potassium hydrogen tartate. Okay. Cream of tartar. Tartar emetic is potassium anemotyl tartarate. Alright, so we've got a potassium hydrogen and a potassium antimony. And so it is going to be a derivative of potassium. Alright, so in that context, potassium, well, yeah, potassium is a wonderful thing. Right? Now, whether it is the mediation between light of day is whatever, but it is one of the intrinsic elements of growth, right? You have potassium, nitrogen, and NPK, right? Potassium, nitrogen. I'm pulling a blank. What is potassium is P, N is nitrogen, K is... I feel like an idiot. I should know this. Potassium. Well, what is P? I'm going to do it a different way. Phosphorus. That's what it is. Okay. I don't know why that just escaped me. I have fertilizer. I deal with it all the time. But yeah, potassium absolutely is going to be. Potassium is a burner. right? If you refine potassium, you can create things that will burn even in water. Named by Ripley the tartar from black grapes. All right, back to the text. One can also make another mixture, namely that of heaven and the philosophical key, by the artifice of generation. Let's see what that footnote is. This probably refers to the treatise of Artifius. That is absolutely going to be talking about making a psychedelic. Right. One can also make another mixture, namely that of heaven and the philosophical key. Now, through the alchemical treatment of the grana, the grain pips, there is, right, we talked about the third eye chakra. Bingo, bango, bongo. It is located inside of your brain, right? If you take just in front of your ears, right here, and you draw a line between those 2 points, and then you come between this point, between your eyes, not down here, but right here. And you come down to where the V of your skull meets in the back. And you draw another line. Where those 2 lines intersect, and there's another one you can draw that intersects as well, through the soft spot down into the soft spot here. Those lines intersect the pineal gland. The pineal gland is roughly the size of a grain of rice. It could be mistaken for a grape pip. It is remarkably similar, as a matter of fact. As a matter of fact, it probably resembles more than it does rice. And so, with that understanding, right, the alchemical treatment of the grape pip are mercurius, the above and below in conjunction, right? Mercurius, not mercury, is concocted by the highest sublimation, bringing the energy to the highest point, right? The mixture of the new heaven. Okay, honey, Caledonia. Those are both gold. There is a golden light that opens. Rosemary flowers. Rosemary flowers are a purple. They are very close to violet. They are white and, right? And so there is a white and a purple. That would absolutely comport with the crown chakra. Mercurialis, right? The red lily and human blood. Now, Mercurius, Mercury, and Mercurialis are 3 different things. They sound remarkably similar. They symbolize 3 different things. I forget what Mercurialis is. Let's see, 84 was what? The dog's Mercurius testiculata. Divided sex and an hymenagogue. Inserted in the vagina. Yeah, that doesn't happen. It is of a golden color. So again, that is another gold reference. The red lily and the human blood are the red references. That could be the reddening, the rubedo, that is the base chakra. Bringing those in concordance, the upper and the lower, does indeed help things, right? And it is intrinsic to the creation of that substance of the flexation that I was talking about earlier. And so while this may not be a one-on-one correlation, I can definitely read into this what I want to. Confirmation bias acknowledged. And it is understandable. So maybe here, even Dorn remarks that the reader will hold his breath. Okay, adding. It is true that these things are scarcely to be understood unless one has full knowledge of the terms used in the art. And these we consider we have defined in the second stage, treating of meditative knowledge. We are definitely going to have to do this. It is only through meditative knowledge that you achieve. Meditative knowledge is thus the sure and undoubted resolution by expert certitude of all manner of opinions concerning the truth. But opinion is an anticipation of the truth, fixed in the mind and doubtful. Maintain the realm of speculation. I love it. Experiment, on the other hand, is manifest demonstration of the truth, and resolution, the putting away of doubt. We cannot be resolved of any doubt, save by experiment, and there is no better way. to make it than on ourselves. I agree. This is exactly the processes that I have in this book, right? What he is talking about, it may exactly is a big word, right? But it is far enough along that I am sure more and more every single example we have of Dorn that he knows what he is talking about, right? There is no better way than to make it on ourselves. That is so very true. We have said earlier that piety consists in knowledge of ourselves. And hence we begin to explain meditative knowledge from this also. But no man can truly know himself unless first he sees and knows by zealous meditation what, rather than who he is, and on whom he depends, and whose he is, and to what end he was made and created, and by whom and through whom. I agree. I do, right? Now, don't do that through the lens of the control systems. I have a whole Bible study breaking apart from that particular mistake. But yes, absolutely. God made man to partake of his glory and created him in his image. Now, this part I agree with. God made man to partake of his glory. We are in his glory. The entirety of creation is the glory of God. It is the Holy Spirit. Created him in his image. That is the one that I'm going to take contention with because we do not know that. We make assumptions of that based upon our pride. We say that because we are better than all the rest of the animals on the entirety of the planet, because we exceed them, God obviously has the look of us. He obviously comports himself in our manner. He is obviously just like us, and that is an assumption that has no foundation in fact. Nobody has ever walked with God. Even as we were created of the basest and most worthless clay, despised by all, so and no otherwise, by reason of the prime matter whereof we consist, are we more prone to everything vile than to him who out of the vile matter created us of old to be his most precious creatures, adorned with glory and honor, little less than the angels. Alright, so first off, this is again making assumptions that are not necessarily true. Why is clay worthless? Why is it baseless? Why? Because you see it that way? Because you look through the lens of original sin and think that we were created from clay, so therefore it has to be intrinsically evil? Like, clay is eminently useful. Even the basest, most worthless clay, it is still useful. We can use it for all kinds of things. We use it for building up earthworks in our gardens. Yeah, okay. We fill in holes with it. Yeah, we can make bricks out of it. We can refine it into something that we can make bricks out of. There are a lot of things that we can do with clay. We can make vessels of which to fill up and drink out of. We can make bowls and all kinds of stuff. And so clay is not intrinsically bad, unless you are looking at it as though everything corporeal is bad and everything spirit is perfect, and so therefore you should object to anything material and you should comport with everything spiritual, regardless of whether it makes sense or not. This is an assumption, right? Just as it is the assumption that God created us in his image, it is an assumption that it is a baseless and worthless clay, despised by all, right? There is no reason to believe that. God created the clay just as much as he created you. Every single bit of existence has a purpose, whether you know it or not, whether it is pertinent to you in particular or not. Everything that is in existence was created by God with a purpose, and so it is not worthless. Despised of all and no otherwise, by reason of the prime matter of which we consist, that would be the Holy Spirit, that is also clay. Are we more prone to everything vile than to him who out of vile matter created us of old to be the most precious creatures? Why would he create you out of the worst clay? Why would he not choose the best clay? Why would he make you prone to, right? But maybe it is part of the existence. Maybe it is not intrinsically evil that you are tempted by the things that bring you down. Maybe there's a better purpose. Maybe there is an ascension process. Maybe you do pull yourself up from the world, but not all the way into the spiritual. That would be equally bad. And so, and this is another thing, right? With honor, a little less than the angels. Well, that's not prideful at all. You don't know that. Once again, that is an assumption that you are making. Now, I believe in angels. I believe that they are there. I don't believe that they are what the Christian church believes that they are at all. I don't necessarily even believe they are what the Judaic church believes that they are, and those are two different things. Back to the text. From the basest matter, God created gold and precious stones. Actually, no. No. Gold is its own element. It was not created from any other matter. It was created from the fundamental harmonics of the existence. So, no. Precious stones, they're created out of carbon for the most part. That's not necessarily the basis of matter. I mean, you can look at it that way, but it is the foundation of all life. Therefore, knowing our nature and our origin, we should abstain from pride. There's also a great deal of silicon, right? Silicon is a separate element from carbon, right? Diamonds are created from carbon. That is the perfection of the carbon form. If you didn't know, diamonds are one of the perfect products. Diamonds and gold both have an 8-point structure. And so there is created from coal some of the semi-precious stones, but like this, well, not that one. What do we got? This right here, this is a quartz, right? It is a smoky quartz. It is created from silicon. And so neither one of those necessarily are the basest of elements. You can look at them that way if you are got that lens on of materiality as bad, but I mean, God did create the material world. Therefore, knowing our nature and our origin, we should abstain from pride. I agree with part of that. For God looks not upon the person, but upon poverty and humility, and hates pride. And again, we run into one of those intrinsic problems with Christianity in particular. You are meant to have things. God created you, put you here on this planet with the intentionality that you would have things. And as a matter of fact, if you believe in the Bible, if you take Genesis as truth, then you have to have things. God quite specifically told Noah when he came down after the flood, right, when Noah set up his little altar and he made his sacrifice, which did not include meat, God came down and said, "You did very good, son. Here, go forth, multiply, subdue the earth, and be stewards thereof." Stewards implies that you are in charge of it. And if you are in charge of it, you're in control of it. And if you are in control of it, it is more than likely that you possess it. There is nothing wrong with having possessions. There is something wrong with loving those possessions to the point where you value that more than other people. That is greed, right? You are erring on the wrong side of the virtue-vice matrix through your heart. You are clinging a little bit to the mortal coil. But if you give away everything and you live in poverty, you are operating from pride. You are operating from the assumption that if you give away all of these things, it makes you better than these other people. That is pride, not humility. In almost every single instance. Now, there are some very few people who are called to give away all that they own, to not have anything, but it is almost certainly not you. And you should not feel guilty about that. There is pride. Pride is a sin. False humility is equally a sin. Not taking the credit for a job well done, that is false humility. That is equally as bad as taking credit for a job that you did not do. Both of those are equally bad. You are to balance yourself between the virtues and the vices, not cling to the virtues. The virtues can lead you down the wrong path just as much as the vices can. Thinking that you are doing correct by giving away all that you own and living in poverty is not living up to your full potential in the way that God created you. Almost certainly. Again, there is always those vanishing percentages on either side. Some people are meant to have extravagance. Some people are meant to live in destitution. It is almost certainly not you for either case. God does not look upon the person, but upon poverty and humility. Only he who made the water and the wine can change the one into the other, and so also the earth into a living soul. And he endued it with his image and likeness for the certainty of our salvation. And again, another intrinsic problem. Right? Who says that you need to be saved? Who says that there was original sin? This one book that is intrinsically flawed? That is the only reference to that. You were created with desires. You should resist many of those desires. But that doesn't make you in need of salvation. If you miss the mark, there is one thing that is required. Right? Sin is missing the mark. If you miss the mark, if you have a goal, I'm going to not cheat, not steal, not lie, right? And you mess up, you do it. And you're like, I'm sorry, God. That's it. That's the requirement. Right there. Now, that is built in with, you need to try not to again, right? You may fail again, but you are not damned to hell because you have failed. You are not damned to hell because you smoke a cigarette or say a cuss word or dance with your wife or have some alcohol. None of that is going to damn you to hell. That is all something that the control system has created to control you, to tell you that drinking alcohol is bad. You should never drink alcohol. Well, that just means that you are weak. You're not weak enough, or you're not strong enough to resist the temptation of alcohol. Alcohol is a weak spirit. If you can't resist that one, you're going to have trouble with some of the other ones. There are definitely more strong spirits to deal with. Right? Giving in to your addictions is giving in to weakness. Right? You know you're not supposed to be doing that. There's nothing wrong with having a drink every now and then, but if your life revolves around having a drink, you know that's wrong. You know that. Nobody has to tell you, but you're going to make somebody tell you before you take action. Right? That is the problem. That someone else has to tell you, hey, bro, you're drinking like all day, every day. You might want to back off on that. Right? That is the problem. That is where the redemption needs. And it's not even because it's a sin. It's because you are giving in to this temptation repeatedly. You need to build the internal fortitude to not do so. The certainty of our salvation. Right? And this, right? Hold on. He who made the water and wine can change it one into the other. That is obviously an allusion to the first miracle by which Jesus changed water into wine. But other people change water into wine all the time. It just takes a little bit more time. Now, changing wine into water, that's going to be a little bit harder. It will go to vinegar. And so also the earth into a living soul. And he endued it with his image and likeness. Now, that can be saying that he gave us Christ to salvation, which is not a thing. Or it can be that he is the image of the earth. Right? Now, neither one of those is going to be correct. Nevertheless, we became rebels through the sin of Adam. There was no sin of Adam. But God was reconciled with us. And I will point out once again that there are severe problems in Genesis. See Genesis. I did a Bible study. It is available for you. There was no original sin. God created a tree and put it in the garden, and either God had full knowledge that someone would eat from the tree, or God was completely ignorant that somebody could eat from the tree. There's a problem on either side of that, right? Either God knew that they were going to eat from the tree and therefore it is no sin, or God had no idea that man could eat from the tree and therefore God is fallible. That's a problem, right? In addition to that, Adam received instruction, do not eat from this tree. Eve did not. We do not have any reasonable reason to believe that Adam would have conveyed that to Eve. So, she didn't know she was doing wrong. She listened to the snake, fine, whatever. Now, you can look at that however you want. But, in addition to that, right, they didn't have the knowledge of good and evil. That is quite literally what they got from the tree. By eating the apple, then they realized that they could sin. So they didn't know that it was a sin to not listen to the instruction of God. All three of those are very, very big problems with that book. That is just scratching the surface. There are so many more problems with that book. And so you shouldn't be taking it as the truth. It does contain some truth, most of it couched quite effectively in allegory. God was reconciled with us. How prideful is that? Who will be so stony when he shall resolve in his mind the mystery of the divine goodness as not to be reconciled with his enemy, however great the injury he received from him? I'm going to tell you now, right? This is mostly true. You should not hold hardness in your heart. You should not hold bitterness in your heart. But that does not mean reconciliation, right? Reconciliation is return to the before, right? Before the incident, you were friends. Then there was an incident. You will not be friends again. That's not reconciliation. There is acceptance. There is forgiveness. Those are good. Reconciliation, not so much, right? If someone has hurt you intentionally, there is a very good chance they will do so again. And while you should forgive them, that does not mean that you need to associate with them. Reconciling with them would be associating with them. There is no way around that. That is what the word means. And so I will be so stony, right? My mind, I have the mystery of the divine goodness. I know that everybody is created for a purpose, but I also know that some of those people are intrinsically misaligned with their divine purpose. They are on the wrong path. And if they are on the wrong path, there is no expectation for me to associate with them in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. I don't wish ill upon them. I don't wish harm upon them. I wish nothing but the best. I hope that they turn around. I will be an example of how to do so. But I do not have to associate myself with them. This guy that lives next door to me, right, broke my leg not quite 6 months ago. Right, we were, 12 days away from 6 months. I don't hold him in the ill will. I really don't. I hope that he gets the help that he needs. I hope that justice is administered in the way that God sees fit. I don't hold any enmity towards him. I'm not wishing for his downfall. I'm not looking for the badness. I want him to get all of the help that he needs. But I have no reason whatsoever to associate myself with him. He is an enemy. He is intrinsically misaligned with the betterment of humankind, and I have no reason to reconcile. Do I hold ill will? Nope. And have I got bitterness in my heart? Nope. I have forgiven him. But that does not mean that I have to associate with him at all. However great the injury received from him. Right? Another one of those intrinsic problems with Christianity, that whole turn your other cheek. That's fine in some instances. There are definitely instances where you should not turn your other cheek. He who knows God will know his brother also. This is the foundation of the true philosophy. And that is true with the caveat of not everybody is aligned with the goodness. Not everybody even wants to be aligned with the betterment of humankind. You, once again, do not have to comport with anyone who does not align with you morally. And he who observes all this in himself, and that doesn't make you better than them, right? You making better decisions doesn't make you a better person. I want to be emphatic about that as well. This guy that lives next to me, who I hold no happiness for, right? I don't hold bitterness, but I'm not wanting him to succeed necessarily. I mean, he is still my brother. He is still equally valuable in the sight of God, but he is definitely not aligned for the betterment of humankind at all in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. I am not the only one that he has problems with. All of my neighbors have a problem with him. If everybody's an asshole, you're probably the asshole. And so, you should be able to recognize within somebody who is even misaligned with you that they are a representative of God. But you should also be fully aware that as a representative of God, and especially if you are upon this path, Sometimes there is corrective action that needs to be dispensed. Most of your correction will be for yourself, but not all of it. And sometimes that will include physicality. You are always allowed to defend yourself. And he who observes all this in himself and frees his mind from all worldly cares and distractions. Footnote 89. And that's down here. Oh, that is just a reference to something else. We'll be back at 91. Little by little and from day to day, will perceive with its mental eyes and with the greatest joy some sparks of the divine illumination. The soul, moved by this, will unite with the body. At length, the body is compelled to resign itself to and obey the union of the two that are united, soul and spirit. That is, the wondrous transformation of the philosophers of body into spirit, and of the latter into body, of which there has been left to us by the sages the saying, make the fixed volatile, and the volatile fixed. Footnote 91. Perhaps this saying lies at the root of the word spagyric, from, to rend, tear, stretch out, or to bring or collect together. Interesting. We'll be back at 95. Then again, this is in comportment with what I talk about. Right? The unification of the soul and spirit is definitely an internal process. It is the transformation of the philosophers of the body into spirit. That is the oneness of the spirit into the body. That is the direct manipulations of the electromagnetic forces of creation, which is the Holy Spirit. Make the fixed volatile and the volatile fixed, and in this you have our magistry. I am not in disagreement. Understand this after the following manner. Make the unyielding body tractable, so that by the excellence of the spirit coming together with the soul, it becomes a most stable body, ready to endure all trials. I am in a perfect agreement with that. I am. That is part of what we talk about in here. That is making the philosophical gold. For gold is tried in the fire. Draw near, ye who seek the treasures in such diverse ways. Know the rejected stone which is made the head of the corner. In vain do they labor, all searchers after the hidden secrets of nature, when, looking for another way of ingress, they seek to reveal the virtues of earthly things through earthly things. Learn not heaven therefore through the earth, but learn the virtues of one by those of the other. Seek the incorruptible medicine, which not only transmutes bodies from corruption to their true disposition, but preserves those so disposed, for any length of time. Such medicine you can find nowhere but in heaven. For heaven, by virtue of invisible rays coming together from all sides in the center of the earth, penetrates, generates, and nourishes all elements, and all things that arise from the elements. This child of two parents, of the elements in heaven, has in itself such a nature that the potentiality and actuality of both parents can be found in it. Agreed. What will remain there till today, an example in the center of the earth, save the stone of the spagyric generation? Footnote 92. That is Latin. That is to say, the center of the earth and the stone correspond. The stone is indeed in the center of you, which can be considered the earth. Your body is the representative of the earth, of salt. Learn from within thyself to know all that is in heaven and on earth, and especially all that was created for thy sake. Knowest thou not that heaven and the elements were formerly one, and was separated from one another by divine artifice, that they might bring forth thee and all things? If thou knowest this, the rest cannot escape thee. Therefore in all generation a separation of this kind is necessary. Thou wilt never make from others the one which thou seekest, except first there be made one thing of thyself. Footnote 93. That is from page 446. I was planning on going into this because it is only a few pages, but we'll try and pick that up on the next one. This was only 5 pages. Right? I was fully expecting like these 2 chapters together would have been 9 pages. 10's about an hour. I did a lot more talking in this than I was expecting to. Sometimes that happens, and so that's going to bring us to the end of part 3. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a series of somewhat difficult topics. I understand that I hold some unconventional beliefs, and I do have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but it is not something that I apologize for. Once again, I feel like I have explained fairly well as we went along the things that I needed to explain. I understand fully that my belief is different. I am the solitary one. I am out here by myself in the wilderness, screaming at the top of my lungs, hey look, there is a way that is a whole lot simpler. It is freeing yourself from the control systems, and then you find truth. There is some truth contained in the Bible. It's not a lot, but it's some. It is not the truth. There are verifiably false things contained within there. The main one that is primarily of concern, there is no prophecy of a virgin birth. If you believe that, someone has lied to you because you probably did not read it yourself. And that's where we're going to leave this. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow. Throw me a comment. Whether you agree or disagree with anything that was stated, put it in the box down below, and if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you really like what I'm doing, hit me with that super thanks. Consider joining for a membership, picking up a copy of my book where I teach you to do all of these things responsibly, or contacting me directly through the various links provided down below. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been pittstake. Peace.